Hi guys, sorry to inflict Nigel Farage upon you, but it seems that Brexit wasn't done. So strange that Farage stood down candidates in order to help Boris Johnson get Brexit done back in 2019, and he also promised voters at the time that the Brexit Party would, and I quote, hold Boris to account. Now at the time I scratched my head wondering, how would that happen? But it seems Nigel wants another Brexit. He was responding to a guy called Tony who likely voted leave and is wondering if Liz Truss or Rishi Sunak got Brexit done, would it focus the minds of those who voted for Brexit and MPs in Parliament that benefited from the lies of 2019? Have a listen.
Next up, it is Tony.
Thank you, Nigel, for coming and rallying the troops, as it were.
Do what I can.
Given that the current two candidates for Prime Minister will do something about the current crisis, do you think if either one of them were to state emphatically that within 6 months they would solve the problem of Northern Ireland, fishing, immigration, and that would have effectively focused the attention of 17.4 million people, plus the 80-seat majority voters that got them into power?
Now, before we get to hear from Nigel, just a few things to say about this. It doesn't matter what they say. They could say anything. We've been down this road before, especially when it comes to Northern Ireland. What did Liz Truss say? Well, I'm ready to trigger Article 16. What did Lord Frost before her say? For a year. He went banging on about it for a year. I'm willing to trigger Article 16. Did he do it? No, he didn't. So it makes no sense to say if they promise to do something in 6 months' time, will it focus the minds of the 17.4 million people? And look, I don't want to be unkind here, but not all of those 17.4 million people are still with us. Okay, that's just stating a fact. And the 80-seat majority is down a few notches. But once again, it doesn't matter what they say.
Tony, if they did those things, I would strip naked and climb onto the roof, you know, and we would then have a proper Brexit. The British people...
A proper Brexit. See, this, and I knew this was going to happen. I knew Farage would constantly say, you know, whatever Brexit was delivered, he would say, it's not a real Brexit. Because he needs to keep this argument warm. If Steve Baker was in charge, Brexit hardman Steve Baker, and he delivered a type of Brexit, Nigel Farage would say, that's not a real Brexit. So he has never defined what Brexit actually is. He's made these hypotheticals. He's talked about, yeah, we control our borders. Well, you do control your borders. You did always control your borders. But now it's actually more difficult to control the borders because you no longer have agreements with European countries and you can't take it up a level if you're not happy with what, for example, the French are doing.
People expected us to have control of our borders. They then discovered we were still stuck in something called the ECHR.
Now, Farage is very clever because he will use language that he knows that the European Court of Human Rights has nothing to do with the EU. He knows that, but he also knows that his audience don't know that. So he'll throw out that it's European. They've heard that it's bad. It's probably related to the EU. I haven't checked, but if Nigel says it's so, then I believe Nigel. I believe whatever Nigel says. So if he says it's part of the European Union, then I'll believe that. And it's worked. It's worked for a long time.
Northern Ireland's been cut off. You speak to East...
Northern Ireland's been cut off. Once again, this is a consequence of Brexit. Nigel Farage, back in 2016, said there would be no problem. Don't worry about Northern Ireland. It's a distraction.
You speak to East Coast fishermen at Albury, on the beach or whatever. Yeah. They've been betrayed.
Betrayed by whom, Nigel Farage? Because you told them something back in 2016, and then over the years following that, you were strangely absent. In the run-up to the vote, Nigel Farage was very popular in these fishing communities, telling them life will be wonderful when we leave the European Union. everything will be great. You'll be able to do whatever the hell you want. And I think there was a little bit of greed on the side of the fishermen, but now he doesn't bother going anywhere near them. And they've never actually requested a visit from Nigel Farage, as far as I know, which is interesting also. You know, if somebody has sold you a wonderful car, okay, or the idea of a wonderful car, and then it turns up to be an absolute banger, would you not be asking the salesman to come back round and explain why the car that you were sold doesn't match the description on the brochure, doesn't match the picture at all? Nigel Farage is a dodgy salesman, and these people believed him, and they're not angry about that. They're angry about the consequences. They're angry that the car doesn't drive, doesn't work, but they don't seem to be angry with the man who sold it to them. And the man who sold it to them is saying, it's not my fault that it's not working. It's the middleman, you know, the guy who delivered it. He's the one who's the problem, not me. I told you it would be wonderful. It's the guy who delivered to your home that's the problem. It fell off the truck on the way over.
Bits of Brexit have worked. There's a lot more to do. If they do it, as I say, I'll be thrilled. I don't see it.
You don't see it?
I'm afraid not. I hope I'm wrong. I
don't see what? Don't see them delivering on Northern Ireland, delivering on borders, because Nigel Farage has set an invisible bar. If Brexit hardman Steve Baker was Prime Minister, Nigel Farage would be saying, it's not a real Brexit. It doesn't matter who delivered it. Even if Nigel Farage, well, he wouldn't be Prime Minister, but whoever would be Prime Minister, it would never be a real Brexit, because he needs to keep this argument warm. He needs to answer gammons. The gammons ask him, how come it's not going well? And he said, because it's not a real Brexit. See, what I was telling you back in 2016 was a real Brexit. But the problem is Boris Johnson, Theresa May, whoever, you know, if it was them or somebody else, it wouldn't be a real Brexit. You needed somebody like me in charge. But Nigel Farage can't get elected to the UK Parliament. So he was always going to be safe. He could say, yes, it's going to be a wonderful Brexit, but he would never actually have to deliver it. He was not going along with the car to the person's home. The car was sent off by someone else, and he can blame that other person for not delivering what he promised. He made massive promises, wonderful promises, back in 2016 about Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland would not be a concern. The fishing community would be able to do whatever the hell they wanted. They'd be able to catch as much fish as they wanted, and they'd be able to sell it wherever they wanted. Farming the same. Trade would be wonderful. And now we're seeing the reality, and you still have the voters asking Nigel, what pressure can we put on the people to people like Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak to deliver the real Brexit? He's a charlatan, and you still believe that he is telling you the truth. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.